Well, let's bring it back to Scientology, because that's one of the interesting things about Scientology is that anyone who is a quote-unquote opponent of Scientology, they are allowed to violate pretty much all of their principles and just go after you. You are the enemy.
Yes.
And there's a whole different set of rules for engaging with someone who's an SP.
An
right?
SP, suppressive person. Yeah.
I like how they do that. SP, that's what they do in the military too, by the way. IEDs, they abbreviate things.
Acronyms. And a lot of stuff that in Scientology is based on Hubbard's naval experience. They dress up in naval uniforms, and he loved things like little, bulletins or anything that felt kind of quasi-military, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In a way, it's a mixture of some military kind of naval stuff and then some corporate style stuff. What it isn't is a lot of religious stuff. Like, that is the one thing that you don't get a flavor of in terms of the way they dress and drill. There's some show business. You got a little touch of Hollywood. You got a touch of naval. You don't have any sense of it being kind of spiritual or religious.
Yeah.
I'm talking in the way they style themselves, the language they use. They're constantly using abbreviations that are more or less unintelligible to the outsider, which, by the way, is a lot of how, allegedly, according to experts on thought reform or cults, so-called, they say that by learning a new language, it's part of what kind of gets you caught up in the thought patterns of an abusive system.
Well, that's also military people. If you talk to people who really have a deep understanding of the military, or people who love the military, they love to talk in those acronyms. They love to use them because it sort of lets everybody know that you're on the inside.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like when people talk about cars or anything where it's there's a surface knowledge that most people have. Oh, that is a Ferrari. Oh, that is a Corvette. But then there's deep knowledge.
Yes.
You start going into the different types of gearing and the axles, and it's got 411 rear end and this and that, and you're like, oh, he knows. He's the deep knowledge. He has the deep knowledge of the car. Well, there's the deep knowledge of the military, and a lot of that is sort of expressed through acronyms.
Yes.
And they do that.
FUBAR, and they do all that stuff. So that's a big part of how they operate. And I think as well, this is something I mentioned before. It is important to bear in mind as well that as much as Scientology kind of casts the world in us and them terms, which is very characteristic of a lot of systems of thought that are inimical to sort of freedom or free way of thinking. It's us and them. It's like Bush saying, you're either with us or against us. And in Scientology, in a famous statement of Tom Cruise's that he gave in 2004 when he was given a Freedom Medal of Valor at a big Scientology awards ceremony in England, he said, you're either playing on the pitch or you're out of the arena. Right,
that's the one when they gave him that gold dinner plate.
A huge, like a Flavor Flav style gong, so his thing is like, you're either on the pitch or get out of the arena, because there's no half measures. Get in or you're out. And that whole idea, like, if you're not part of the solution, then you're part of the problem.
Yeah,
it's a very dangerous, slippery road to go down, because you're then by definition saying, there's good guys and bad guys, and if you're not on my team, you're a bad guy.
Well, let's define what the solution is, Tom. Sit down. Tell us about what are thetans. Yeah. Explain to me how they throw them into a volcano. What happens?
Well, I'm going to sound weird now, because like one of my promises that I made to myself was that I would never gratuitously mock the beliefs of Scientology. And one of the things they find offensive is to reveal some of the secret truths that are unveiled. Okay, I'll take a step back. Unique to Scientology is that it's a mystery religion, meaning that many of its beliefs are unveiled as you advance up the ladder of enlightenment, okay? So you don't, day one, get told, unlike with Jesus and Christianity, on day one you're told he died on the cross for your sins, believeth in him, and you will be saved and go to heaven. There's no kind of catch or later sort of amendment that gets made when you're a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line. In Scientology, you learn more as you go up. Some say that this is partly something that it owes to Crowley, or Aleister Crowley, I think it's pronounced, and that Hubbard had practiced a form of Satanism when he was living in Pasadena in the 40s, right after the Second World War, and incorporated that aspect of it. And it is quite a seductive idea, the idea, I'm going to learn more as I go on, a kind of unraveling mystery. So that is part of Scientology. And when you get to the OT levels, which is once you've gone clear, which is sort of half.
And OT is operating
thetan, yeah. So to begin with, like, going clear was originally the best thing you could do, and then subsequently he added more levels and more layers, and you get to the OT, and there's 8 published OT levels, and OT3 various secrets are revealed, and allegedly if an uninitiated OT or an uninitiated person is shown the secrets, it makes them go crazy. But one of the things that, you're not supposed in the film, and every documentary about Scientology rejoices in telling you what the OT stuff is, and I think you were about to touch on it. I promised myself that I wouldn't reveal them because I sort of felt, it's a little cheap when all these documentaries say, this is what you $100,000 in, or 200 or 500,000, you're going to learn what happens at OT3. And then they spoil the surprise for everyone. And I also felt like I'd like to be able to say to it, if I ever meet a Scientologist, I'm sure I've met some, but without knowing it. But, if I ever meet Tom Cruise or Beck, I want to be able to say, like, you know what, I didn't ever do anything. I have a right to know my truth and express my truth. I don't want to mock you. I don't want to make fun. You have a right to believe what you want to believe. And if you think, no more than I'd force a Jewish guy to eat pork or tell a Rastafarian he had to cut his hair. And so I'm not going to say to an OT, I know what happens at OT3, and it sounds like a bunch of junk.
Well, you don't even have to say it's a bunch of junk, but just expressing, I think there's what we know, okay, what we know about their doctrine,
yes,
or their, whatever you want to call it, their scripture. And there's an amazing moment in the documentary, the HBO documentary, where it was Paul Higgs, is that what his name is? Haggis.
He gets to OT3. Yeah,
yes.
You're going to say it. Fine.
He gets to OT3 and he starts reading some of the handwritten stuff by L. Ron Hubbard.
There's a whole palaver. It's an interesting bit in the book too. Do you remember, like, he's guided into a room and literally it's almost like they take it out of a safety deposit box and kind of open it up with gloves, kind of white gloved hands, and then there's a handwritten kind of piece of parchment inside, written in Hubbard's manuscript, and you read it in that room, and then the guy has a kind of little routine he follows, like the person who brought you in comes in and says, has it been read and comprehended, or something like that, right? And then you've read it and you go like, yes, and then ask and it shall be done, or something, and then they put it back in and take it away. Yeah.
Well, it must be.
It's a great sense of theatre.
Yes.
Like, I love. It's like being in the Masons, or all that secret squirrel stuff is very appealing.
Secret squirrel.
It's quite,
yeah, I forgot about secret squirrel. Yeah, but I think it's important to talk about what we know about what that is, about what is.
That's fine. I mean, it's out there. It's on the internet. What I would say is what they believe is that man is an immortal spirit, and you are not your body. You are the spirit, and the spirit is a thetan. That's the term they use for spirit. And your spirit, you in essence, have lived multiple lifetimes in multiple bodies, going back millennia and going forward millennia.
And that's not a unique thought.
No, I mean
unique to them.
No, you have that in Buddhism, but unlike in Buddhism, the transmigration of souls does not resides only in humans. Right? I don't think you can become a chipmunk, right? Which you can in Buddhism, I think. Can you not?
I do not know.
And I think, depending on how your karma is, and that's number one. And number two, which is even more important, or just as important, is that you can carry your memories through the lifetimes using Scientology. And the gift that Scientology gives you is the ability to retain your memories and your identity across multiple lifetimes. And that's why it's so important to a Scientologist to recollect his or her past lifetimes, because it suggests that you're now on your cosmic destiny, and you will carry it forward into when you next incarnate.
These are all unique ideas. I mean, they're interesting, but when you know the source of all of it, and yet they ignore it, and they choose to not pay attention to the other things that he read or wrote, rather, like Battlefield Earth, that movie with John Travolta. Did you ever see that?
I never saw that one.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. It's right up there with. Did you ever see Showgirls?
Yes, I have seen Showgirls.
Showgirls is like a tour de force of writing a movie while you're high on cocaine.
Yeah, it's Joe Esterhazy wrote that. And it's Paul Verhoeven directed it. It's a great combination.
It's one of the best unintentional comedies that's ever been made.
I'd argue that because Verhoeven's a brilliant director, right?
Yes.
And I think Starship Troopers he made, and the first RoboCop. He knew. I think he knew what he was doing. I think he has a keen eye for camp, and thought this is hilarious. Don't you? Esterhazy maybe not.
It could have been. It could have been. I think they were just coked out of their mind, and they made a wacky fucking movie, and they probably thought it was great. Like, fucking print it. Yeah. Let's go. Let's go out. Let's hit the Ivy. And I don't know. I mean, I think they were just out of their mind. I mean, if you watch that film, there's a scene where what is her name? Elizabeth Berkley. Yeah. And the other guy from
I can't remember who.
Blue Lagoon.
Is
that
it?
What is from? Was he from? What was that TV show that he was on? The handsome one, Kyle. What the fuck's his name?
MacLachlan? Is it?
Yeah, Kyle MacLachlan. They're having sex in a pool, and she starts flopping around like a fish. Like, she literally starts having spasms. Like, if you continue to have sex with her, I feel like that's rape. Like, this is a woman who's having a goddamn seizure, and you're going to keep having sex with her? Have you ever seen this scene?
No.
It's wonderful.
Well, I've seen the movie, so yes, I must have.
It's wonderful. She starts, they're having sex, and she starts flailing like as if she's having a goddamn stroke. She's in the middle of a heart attack or a seizure. And that choice is the only thing that haunts me about that movie. Like, maybe it was camp. Maybe they were doing that on purpose.
I think it was. But, I read an interview with the director of Battlefield Earth. Is it Battlefield Earth?
Yes.
And he apparently is a pretty good director, and he's a European, I think, maybe French, and I think he just didn't know what he was walking into, And I think he didn't really check out what the gig was.
Well, that was a product of John Travolta.
Yeah,
wasn't
I think Travolta was backseat
Labor of
driving
Love.
it, maybe.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's wonderfully bad.